Some of the most fun games that I've ever played personally are hack and slash type games. These games can be insanely fun, especially with their fast and frantic weapon-based combat systems. But the question is, what are some great hack and slash games that you can go out and play right now on your Nintendo Switch? Well, today we will focus on the top 10 best hack and slash games available as of 2020 on the Switch, and I think we got some great ones here for you today. Now, do remember that this is only my opinion, and yours may be completely different than mine. And if that is the case, let me know some of your favorite games as well in the comments below. With that said though, let's get right into the video. At number 10, I have Attack on Titan 2, which is surprisingly a really fun game. A lot of the times when a big anime such as Attack on Titan goes to the video game format, that doesn't always tend to be the best experience. But in the case of Attack on Titan 2, it was translated very well, especially when it comes to the combat. As you grapple into buildings and titans to fly around, as you hack away at these enormous titans, you feel that rush of heart-pounding action. And if you like the show, you may end up liking the story in this game as well. You will be playing a created character, or in other words, a silent hero that builds a relationship with the main cast of characters, and it's not going to blow you away in terms of its story or anything, but overall it's serviceable, and most importantly, it's a fun game. At first glance, you may think Onimusha kinda looks similar to the old Resident Evil games, or at least the way the camera is positioned. And well, that's because this is another old classic Capcom game that released back in 2002 for the PlayStation 2, though it seems to be a bit forgotten. That really is too bad as well, because Onimusha is a lot of fun and is probably one of Capcom's best games. The magic and blade-based combat is a lot of fun to wreak havoc on these mutated demons, and as you absorb their spirits to upgrade your powers, there's always a lot of fun to be had. Sure, from a visual standpoint, it's a little dated considering it originally did release on the PlayStation 2, but I think this game holds up rather well in 2020, and if you grew up playing the PlayStation 2, you'll probably like Onimusha. Over the years, there have been several spin-offs to the Dynasty Warriors franchise, mixing in that chaotic combat with tons of enemies on screen and a world of an already popular franchise. Now, I did not just choose one game here, but I can recommend you 3 separate but great games, and it really depends on which world you like most. But you do have Hyrule Warriors for you Zelda fans out there, you have Dragon Quest Heroes, and Fire Emblem Heroes as well. All of these are great games, though if I were to just recommend one, I would probably say Hyrule Warriors. You get to play as some of the most popular Zelda-based characters, including Link, Zelda, Ganondorf, Sheik, among several others. There are a ton of unique characters to play in this game, and they do a fantastic job mixing in the world of Zelda with Dynasty Warriors. When you get placed on a huge battlefield to slay hundreds of enemies, not only do you feel that rush, but pair it with the remixed Zelda music, and it's just a blast to play. Darksiders II is probably one of the most underrated games that I've seen within the last decade. I mean, it's not the best game in the world, but I do think that there is a really good game here for not just its hack and slash combat, but for its adventure type gameplay as well. See, the thing about Darksiders 2 is it's almost a mix of God of War and Zelda, and I know that sounds like an odd mix and everything, but the world itself and the way you explore it is very similar to the 3D Zelda franchise, where you travel to several dungeons, face bosses, and solve puzzles. The combat, on the other hand, plays a little bit more similar to something like God of War, and it does have some RPG elements to it as well, and overall, if you like either God of War or Zelda, I could definitely see you enjoying Darksiders 2. Wonderful 101 right away is an extremely weird and wacky game in the best possible way. From the very first moment you turn on this game, it sets a tone for its odd sense of humor, as you're just some nerdy man on a school bus who suddenly turns into a superhero by the name of Wonder Red to save all the children from a bus crash. From this point forward, you basically create an army of unlikely heroes who can join together to create objects to solve puzzles or weapons to defeat large enemies roaming the city. As you progress, you will learn more abilities, but this game truly does excel when it comes to its combat. I think it's a little bit more difficult to get the hang of compared to some of the other games on this list, and because you are playing a lot of people, you can lose yourself amidst all the action as they are tiny on screen, and it is hard to keep track of everything on the screen at once, especially if you're playing in handheld mode. But I do think Wonderful 101 has one of the most in-depth and fun combat systems on this list, so I would easily recommend Wonderful 101. Hyperlight Drifter is just a little bit different than most of the other games on this list, as this game is actually played in an isometric view. And right away you probably notice the gorgeous pixel art displayed in Hyperlight Drifter. It's not just a pretty game to look at though, because it has a brilliant combat system where not only do you have a blade to get up and close and personal with, but once you slash away at your enemies, you gain bullets in return. I love this system, it's a lot of fun to play around with. But in Hyperlight Drifter, combining the hack and slash combat with a gun, and on top of that the dash ability, it becomes almost like a dance as you pick and choose how to attack your foes. And this game can be very difficult at times as well, especially during boss encounters, but I can easily say that this game is not just one of the best hack and slash games on the Switch, but quite simply, it's one of the most fun games on the Switch, period. Hellblade is the first game on this list that I'm not just going to recommend for its combat alone, but also for its story. The combat itself is pretty straightforward and can be relatively cinematic even, but the story itself in Hellblade is among the best in the entire industry. It truly is that good. The story is tied to mental issues and will really have you thinking on a deeper level, and you'll really start to try and put everything together once the ending credits roll. And one of the reasons is not just because the story is written so well, but the voice acting and facial animations by the main actress Melina Jorgens did a phenomenal job as Senua. To think that this game was only made by 20 developers still blows my mind today, as Hellblade could easily stand toe-to-toe with big AAA games. And luckily for you Switch owners, Hellblade is a great looking port on the Switch, so you don't have to worry about a bunch of technical issues, though I will recommend you to play this game with a good pair of headphones, as the sound effects in Hellblade are fantastic. There is no way I could possibly do a list like this without talking about Devil May Cry, one of the best the genre has ever seen, and while the Switch didn't get Devil May Cry 5, it does however have Devil May Cry 3. And it's just as great as what it was when it originally released back in 2005. Right away, I will say that it has aged incredibly well thanks to its combat system. The thing about Devil May Cry, it's not just about defeating your opponents, but it's also about getting the most out of its stylish and flashy combat system. It's not just cool looking though, but it feels so fluid and near perfect with a combination of gun combat alongside its melee-based weapons. It also helps that the boss encounters and enemy designs are second to none, and it has an interesting story with fun characters. The main protagonist Dante comes off as a little bit overly confident, but he brings that charisma that you love to watch, and if you like these type of games, do yourself a favor and go check out Devil May Cry 3. Next up we have the sassy and over-the-top Bayonetta 2, and I think many people could debate that this game deserves the #1 spot on this list, and honestly, I completely understand why. The combat in this game is possibly the best the genre has ever seen, with its frantic action and addicting combo system. The hair transformations and wide variety of weapons with a combination of your guns strapped to your shoes feels fantastic. It's challenging in a good way, there's a ton of variety in both its set pieces and enemies, it's very stylish, it's got a lot of character and personality to it, and most importantly, it's a ton of fun. It's pretty much everything that you want in a game like this, and I for one love the fact that this is a challenging game. You're not just going to be mashing buttons, but rather, there is an art to this game. The only downside to Bayonetta 2 though, is that yes, it can come off as a little provocative, and that may be a turnoff for some people, but if you're okay with that, then this is a must-have game, and arguably the best hack and slash game available right now. If anything, it has me super excited to hear more about Bayonetta 3. And at the #1 spot, I have none other than Astral Chain, and it is no coincidence that yet again we have another Platinum Games game here. Platinum Games have really mastered the hack and slash combat, and we have already talked about Bayonetta and Wonderful 101, but I think Astral Chain may possibly be Platinum Games' best work on the Switch. You basically mix several types of combat all in one with Astral Chain as you unlock new legions, which are these alien creatures that you have linked up with a chain to use as a weapon. Each legion does have their own abilities that you have to master, because not only will you be using the legion to fight with you, but you will also be fighting with your own unique character as well. This goes for exploring the world too, as each legion can help solve puzzles and crime. The combat though is definitely what it excels at, as you're combining the two's combat styles together in battle, and it doesn't stop there either, because the story is pretty interesting as well, with plenty of twists along the way. I would have preferred to have a voice for the main character, but it still was interesting. And then to top it off, I think that there is a real argument that Astral Chain is the best looking game on the Switch. The color choices in Astral Chain really pops off the Switch screen, and it's just a treat for the eyes. But honestly, this is such an amazing game, and I would highly recommend Astral Chain. Anyways though, that's it for this video, but if I missed any of your favorite games, let me know in the comments below so we can all discover those games as well. With that said though, if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Peace out.